Welcome to This Week in Health IT, where we discuss the news, information, and emerging thought with leaders from across the healthcare industry. This is episode number 15. It's Friday, April 20th. Today, we take on one of the hardest roles in the country. A CIO veteran and I will play a little game on what we would do if we were named the CIO at the VA. This podcast is brought to you by Health Lyrics. Get ahead of the wave. We believe every health IT organization has it within them to be great. It all starts with clarity. Visit healthlyrics.com to schedule your free consult. My name is Bill Russell, recovering healthcare CIO, writer, and consultant with the previously mentioned Health Lyrics. Today, I'm joined by HIMSS Chimes CIO of the Year, I believe our third on the show, author of the book Extraordinary Tales from a Rather Ordinary Guy, former CIO at Texas Health Resources, University Hospitals in Cleveland, the advisory board and current CIO of the Cleveland Clinic, and a wonderful friend, Ed Marx. Ed, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be part of it.
Well, I appreciate you coming. Normally I'd go through the bio, but as with Halamka, I can't read your whole bio because you've done so many things. I think a better way for people to get a sense of who you are, I was hitting your LinkedIn page last night and read your most recent article about your third brush with death. That's three more than I've had, and it's really a pretty compelling story. Can you share a little bit about that story to give people a sense of who you are?
Yeah, I'm learning a lot more about healthcare and technology actually as a result. And so I'm very, very thankful despite the circumstances. Yeah, so when it comes to health, I'm a pretty good picture of health. I take care of myself, and so all my vitals are stellar. My cholesterol is 140, my blood pressure is like 110/70. My resting heart rate, because of all the exercise I do, and perhaps some genetics, is 40. So, and I get taken care of all the time. I get screened. I do have some high risk things that I do, whether it's climbing mountains or competing internationally in triathlon, duathlon. So I get screened extra. In fact, a month ago, I had some extra screening done just to make sure that, I'm continuing to be healthy. Well, anyways, so you take all that, and I'm doing a race in South Carolina. It's the 2018 National Championships for Team USA for duathlon. It's the sprint race. There's a couple different categories, but this one happened to be sprint. And so I was tooling along towards the end of the race, and I was laying down probably like 6.5-minute miles, and it's a run, bike, run. So I'm on this last run, and then all of a sudden I felt my chest tighten, just like you read about. Like it felt like someone sitting on my chest. My chest tightened. I thought, man, that's weird. And I thought, well, maybe it's because during the bike portion, it was raining, and you're going about 25, 30 miles per hour. You're holding on for dear life on the handlebars because you're literally like an inch or two from someone else's tire.
Right.
So one look, it's bad news. So you're really gripping down on the handlebars. And I thought as I was running, maybe it's because I was so like tight in the chest during the bike that it finally caught up with me, and my muscles were freezing up a little bit. And I had no shooting pain down the left arm. I had no jaw pain. I had no nausea. I had no other classical symptoms but this tight chest. So I started breathing a little bit heavier, trying to get breath in, and it was fine. But it definitely felt like something was wrong. And so I thought about, okay, I have about 2 miles left. Do I stop and try to find someone to help me? There's definitely people along the course that could help. And I thought, well, if something's really wrong, by the time the ambulance gets to me, cuts through all the traffic, there's a high traffic area, there's a race going on, it's going to be 10, 15 minutes. I thought, I'll just outrun this thing. It'll be fast for me to run. So I just kept running. A good friend of mine on the team passed me, and he's like, Ed, follow me, because he knew I was going a little slower now. And he's like, follow me. And I tried to follow him. I just couldn't do it. It was like really weird. But I was still putting about a 7:15 pace, still chugging along. So anyways, I finished the race, and I was like very excited about that. I made Team USA for the next year's World Championships. But I still felt this pressure. So I checked myself into the Bon Secours, had emergency medicine there. And I said, this feels really funny. I'm otherwise healthy male, and something's wrong. And so they did an EKG. There was enough to show there that there was a problem. Stuck me in an ambulance. They did another EKG. I definitely was having a heart attack. And so then by the time, the cool thing of the story is, while I was waiting in the ED, ready to get taken to the cath lab, the interventionalist cardiologist came up to me, and my company, the place that I served, the Cleveland Clinic, already had been talking to him. So the number one foremost cardiologist in the world already talking to this doc in South Carolina about what they're going to do and how to do it and all that kind of stuff. He turned out to be awesome. The cath lab was already prepared, even though it was early Saturday morning, because there was another emergency right before me that they just finished. So I went from bedside, not bedside, but door to balloon in less than an hour, which is very key. And then he allowed me to watch the whole thing. So I'm laying there flat on my back, and I'm watching him perform his artwork and, stenting me, putting a stent inside of me through my arm. And it was amazing to watch the heart reignite with blood, and things started flowing and everything got back to normal. And so far, the prognosis has been I'm completely normal, no damage to the heart, no permanent damage to the heart. And so now I'm just chomping at the bit. I'm allowed to do some exercise already, chomping at the bit for more. But the cool thing is I'm starting to utilize, Bluetooth, blood pressure, EKG, heart rate, all that kind of stuff. And I'm getting my cardiologist who's hadn't used it before, and we're putting it directly into our electronic health record, so I don't have to go report it manually. So that part of it's kind of cool. It's like I get to experience what we talk about, digital strategy, digital health, and we're actually doing it on myself.
And I love this. I love the story from that aspect, but I also love the story from the other aspect where you really encourage people. You have 13 things in there, talking to them about things like reconciliation, identity, personal responsibility, and you close with exhorting everybody to really live life to the fullest, because this is this is the only body we get, and make sure you make the most of it. It really is an awesome post. And I think one of the things I do appreciate about you the most is you don't shy away from sharing the personal. You don't shy away from, talking about things that other people tend to try to keep it all business, and you share well beyond that. And I appreciate that.
I think it's so important to be authentic. People want authenticity, and I'm not embarrassed about it. I definitely prided myself on being an athlete on Team USA and all that kind of stuff, but you have to be authentic, and then the more you share, the more benefit there is for other people. So I'll give you an example. I had a couple people come up to me, and I won't give any more detail than that because I don't want to in any way give away who they possibly could be. But since that time, come up to me and confide in me that they had a similar episode in their life where they had STEMI. They never told anyone. And I'm thinking to myself, come on, guys, we are in healthcare. Let's share this information, because maybe with you sharing, maybe I learned some life lessons through you. I don't have to go through the same ordeal, but I learned to pick up the phone and call someone who I love that I haven't had a relationship for a long time because of your encouragement. What that person could have done that, or that person could have told other people about it and said, hey, even if you have a great health record, even if everything looks perfect, do this test, do this calcium test, do this other thing, because had I done it, I wouldn't have had to go through that. So that's why I think it's so important to share with others. It's like there's so much that we can gain from other people's experiences. There's no reason that everyone has to suffer a heart attack to learn these things, right?
Yeah, and even the description that you gave of, hey, this is what it felt like, and this is what how it sort of manifested itself. I have history of heart issues in my family. And that's one of the things I asked my dad. I'm like, how am I going to know when this happens? What's it going to feel like? And we know that from the moment it starts to the moment you're getting worked on. I mean, that time frame is very critical. So part of it's identifying it, and just hearing these stories helps people along the path. So one of the things we like to do before we really jump into the meat of the show is just give our host an opportunity to talk about, what's one thing that you're working on, or something you're excited that you're working on right now.
Yeah, I'm so excited about digital health strategy, not just because it's ironic in the middle of this, all this happened, but when we started, we have a fairly new team, and we had a heavy lift to do. And we started 7 months ago, and the first thing we did, stop the bleeding. And so we put together a cybersecurity plan, all those sort of things. We got it funded, and we're kicking on it. And so we set up governance, and our CEO is the co-chair of our IT steering committee, along with myself. And we got this whole PMO developed, and we did a lot of the basic stuff. The next thing was to develop an IT roadmap. So with this governance structure, with this IT steering committee, we developed the IT roadmap, 4-year roadmap, first year mostly funded. And so with the basics in place, and we already have good analytics, and we've got good electronic health record, with all that in place, we were ready for digital. So we're also an agile organization, so everything we do is agile. So we took the same approach with developing our digital health strategy. So in 6 weeks, we did 3 2-week iterations we developed this digital health strategy, which on Monday was endorsed for the next phase. So exciting. So that's the one thing, I'm so excited about, because that's really the nirvana for us, is how do we take advantage of all the technology that's available today and do some things that will really enable the mission of our organization, to save people's lives and our patient first culture. And what we do at the clinic, which is cool, is it's really global. So whatever we do here, we work with our global partners around our enterprise around the world, and we do these amazing things to help our caregivers give the best care in the world.
Yeah, I mean, you really do have a great opportunity. Somebody once asked me, if you were going to go back to being a CIO, where would you go? And I said Cleveland Clinic would be one of those places, because you're surrounded by such a great team and such great innovators and really a global reach. I mean, with the things that you guys are doing now.
Yeah, sometimes I was at lunch with someone today, and I was just sitting there thinking, in fact, I just met with my CMIO, and I had the same conversation with her. I said,
yeah,
it's humbling. It's totally humbling. It's honoring. And you realize you're in the midst of giants, and you just want to do your very best.
Yeah. And just keep reminding yourself, and on the bad days, just keep reminding yourself of that, because any healthcare CIO will tell you there's peaks and valleys. So
oh, yeah, totally.
All right. So what we normally do on the show is we take a look at the news, we do leadership or tech talk, then we go into our favorite social media post. We're just going to do one news story this week and play a little game with it. Not a game, but we're going to play a little scenario with it because I really want to spend a little bit more time in the second. And so I'll tee up the story a little bit and give our listeners some background. So the VA CIO, Scott Blackburn, resigned recently. There's a federaltimes.com story about it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a little background of what's been going on there. It's very public, and hopefully set up a conversation that we can work off of some of the last articles you did for his talk around what you do to prepare to be a CIO, what you do in the first day, the first 100 days, and what you're trying to accomplish. So let me tee this up. So the VA exists within a larger ecosystem. You have the DoD, you have the Coast Guard, and you have the VA. They all have their EHR stories. The patients obviously are heroes. They're brave men and women who are fighting for our rights and protecting us around the world, and we want to give them the best healthcare possible. The situation around the EHR is very public and very political, right? So the DoD had one of the worst EHRs as measured by surveys that had been done over the years, and they launched a project to replace their EHR with a Cerner Millennium product, and the project is called MHS Genesis, and they are rolling that out, and it's getting pretty good reviews at this point. The Coast Guard had a failed EHR implementation for whatever reason, could be change management, could be whatever, but they had a failed EHR implementation with Epic, and they hit the reset button, and they chose to latch onto the DoD project. As they say, the requirements are relatively the same, and so they have sort of come together, and now you're going to see the same EHR product across the DoD and the Coast Guard. And then the VA, which was one of the pioneers for the EMR, has a product called Vista, built on top of CPRS, and it's built on top of an open source platform, so really is available to anyone out there. They recently did a no-bid contract, which was given to Cerner on their Millennium product as well. Very public, very controversial. And just one more piece of information here. So the VA, as I said, was a pioneer. In 2008, ABC did a segment dedicated to the EMR, and they talked about the VA, and they highlighted how the electronic medical record had led to fewer medical errors, as we know, more effective treatments, lower costs, and higher patient sat. So they were a pioneer. They were at the forefront, and they really laid the groundwork. So there's a history of success to build on. Okay, so that's the background. We just make you and I, we just became CIO for the VA. In fact, let's do it this way. In 30 days, we're going to become the CIO for the VA. And we'll break this down into what are we going to do between now and the next 30 days to prepare ourselves to become the CIO for the VA? What would you tell people about the next 30 days as you're getting ready?
Yeah, first, as a veteran myself and the son of a veteran and brother and sister of veterans, I would feel very honored and humbled also by that position, very sacred. patients that they take care of. And so I would approach it very, obviously very seriously and with purpose. And so, like what I usually talk about is in your preparation, the first pre 30 days is you always have to be true to your current employer and then true to your family, because when you start this new job, it's going to require a lot of effort, a lot of extra effort. So you may not be available as much. So I'd really take care of those two things first, make sure there's good transition where I am, and make sure that I take time with my family. To the extent I can get involved still, I like to do that. I did that before arriving at the Cleveland Clinic. So I learned as much as I could about the organization. So I had them send me a bunch of information. So I requested a lot of information. And then depending on that lead time, I had an opportunity to have weekly meetings. So I had about 6 weeks lead time. And if you afforded that luxury, it's nice just to get engaged a little bit ahead of time. So those are the sort of things I would do, is whatever research I could do ahead of time, so that when I arrived on day one, I could sort of hit the ground running.
Yeah, and there's a lot of wisdom in that. I mean, the two things I would say is, I went into my role as a CIO with pretty bad habits. They don't get better when you start the role. They get worse. So I ended up putting on 30 pounds and lived a pretty unhealthy lifestyle for about 6 years of my life. So I'd say, if all you have is 30 days, make sure you get your habits in line. Spending the quality time with your family is important, health-wise important. So make sure you get all those things, and recognize they typically aren't hiring a CIO because everything's going swimmingly. Very rarely is that the case. So your first year is probably going to be a very busy year. So so getting ready. So what are you trying to do that first day, let's just say the first 30 days? You hit the ground running. What are you going to do for the VA in that situation? How are you going to engage?
Yeah. So what I do next is really hit the ground listening. So if no matter where the organization is and where the VA is today, it's not going to get profoundly worse or better by you not getting super engaged. You know what I'm saying? There's probably a steady state that's occurred over time, and that steady state is okay to continue. Now, it's different if you inherit a situation where things are tanking. But in the VA, they're dealing with stuff, but they've been dealing with the same stuff for a while. So you need to take the time to listen and to develop relationships, because ultimately that's what's going to help you, is knowing what the issues are. And you only can do that by listening and meeting with people, and then developing relationships, because one person's too small a number for greatness. So you're going to have to be reliant on a broader team, not just IT, but also outside of IT. So I would be spending a lot of time with my peer group, with my direct reports, with the senior leadership of the organization, and then to the extent that you have time. And VA is a big place, and so it has a lot of sites across the United States. Is starting to slowly make my way out into developing these relationships and understanding what the issues are. That'd be probably the first thing.
Yeah, and I think one of the mistakes we make, or at least early on in our careers, we make as we get older, we recognize that this is not the case. But they're not looking for a hero. They're not looking for somebody who's going to come in with all these great ideas and change everything and that kind of stuff. It really, you're coming into something that's already going on. As you said, the VA has a long history. They're doing a lot of great work. There's a lot of great people there with good ideas and good thoughts. I think Kalamka sort of mentioned this as, it's the convener. It's the person who can bring people together. It's the generative questions that make everyone a little better. I mean, that's really the role of the CIO, is to inject some of the technology and what's going on in the industry. But for the most part, the people we're working with are very knowledgeable. They already have a pretty good background on the technology. And we come into a story that's already in progress, and maybe add color and direction to it because of the distinctives of who we are.
Yeah, and you have to take a very balanced approach, and you have to respect those who are still there, those who have left, and not think that you know it all. So there's some expectation that people want you to come in and fix things right away, but you have to avoid that temptation, because one, you can't, you'll fail. So I always look at it as a marathon. We were talking about running earlier. You got to look at it as a marathon. It didn't break in a day. It didn't break, in a month or a year. It probably broke over time. So you take some time to do it right.
Yeah. And there are some things you have to, you mentioned cybersecurity. There's some things you have to fix immediately. When I came in, the data center had gone down 8 times in 6
Yeah,
weeks,
right.
and it was welcome to the show. Fix that immediately. So, do you set like, hey, in my first 100 days, I want to accomplish this, or is there? I mean, first 100 days, we look at the presidency and we say first 100 days mark, so pretty important. Is the same thing true with the CIO, or is it more of a longer term view?
I think you have to look at definitely at the long term, but I think it's important that you have a plan for the first 90 days. So I literally had a plan, which I shared on his talk, as you mentioned, a 120-day plan. It was the pre-30 and then the next 90. And then towards the next 90, you develop the next 90-day plan. And so that manifested itself in, and I developed that next 90-day plan with my direct reports. So that they were involved in that planning effort. But I knew the basic things I needed to do. I had a list of everyone I needed to meet. There was over 100 individuals that I wanted to meet in the first, I think I did it in the first 45 days, just because it took a while to make appointments and things of that nature. So it was hit the ground listening. But I had a plan. I had down to that detailed level of who I needed to meet with and by what time. And then, what did I need to understand? And then what did I need to publish? So at 30 days, I published, so this was my plan. I published my 30-day analysis. And then I had a 60-day analysis and a 90-day analysis. And I shared this with my boss. I shared this with my peer group. I said, these are my findings. This is where I think needs to have attention. And then so if you take that 90 plus that 90, a deliverable in there was the IT strategy, which we did.
So that's is that the 3-year plan or the 5-year plan that you talked about?
Yeah, it's a 4-year. I think it's 4 or 5 year IT road. We call it IT roadmap. But yeah, in my plan, I said by month 6, we will deliver a roadmap. And that was based on the listening tour. That was based on my team input, external partner input, some personal experience. And we put together this plan and we delivered it exactly to the IT steering committee on my 180th day.
That's fantastic. I like the fact that you've split out delivering the plan from getting funding, because I know I delivered a 5-year plan and it took us almost 6 months of going back and forth to get that funded, and that's a completely different process a lot of times.
Yes.
So all right, I'm gonna given what's going on in the EHR project, is there any words of wisdom? I mean, there's going to be a next CIO at the VA. Any words of wisdom you would give them to how to build consensus or alignment around either staying with Vista or going to another platform? I mean, what words of wisdom would you impart?
Well, Bill, this provides us opportunity to be a little provocative, and maybe it's time to blow up the current model and try something completely different. So, when I think about how we deal with electronic health records today, we have the record, and then they didn't have very good analytic capabilities, so we had to build analytic capabilities a lot of time externally to wait for the catch up, and then we had to build decision support sometimes separately or wait for the catch up, and now there's several other examples, mobility. Now we're dealing with digital health and sort of the future, and we're having to wait or catch up. I wonder what would happen if you're in that role and there's going to be a big spend anyways. Maybe it's time to start from scratch and build something brand new that's interoperable. Don't have to worry about interoperability anymore. That incorporates everything in that whole life cycle of what we call digital, but all the way down to the more mundane things, the base foundation, and it's this platform to which we can then add on anything that we wanted to in the future, whether it was Fire or whatever sort of APIs. That to me is a provocative concept, and maybe it's the fire that's needed to move legacy vendors into the modern era.
Yeah, it's it's interesting that you say that, because the discussion. So they did a survey of they did a survey just in general. Should they move? Should they not move? And generally, people are saying, "Hey, stick with Vista." And I think I would take. Here's my approach. First of all, the VA doesn't have to worry about billing for the most part. I mean, the federal government is paying for those services. So a lot of the EHR innards of the EHR, if they go with Epic or Cerner or whatever, is around that whole billing mechanism and funding mechanism. And so a significant portion of that is almost irrelevant within the VA environment. So I tend to agree with you at the rethinking how they do it. I don't like the idea of rebuilding the EHR from scratch, only because it's already there. And really what we're looking for is better transitions of care, better interoperability, and integration with digital tools and digital strategies. So I would clearly define the problem set that we're trying to solve, and then I would take your approach and say, all right, these are the problem sets. Do we build on top? Do we allow this to run the hospitals and the clinics? And then we build on top of that, in which case you can be very prescriptive when you go to the EHR providers and say, look, you don't own our data, we own our data. We need our data to be able to move in this way, and really be prescriptive to that. I mean, if you're going to write a $15 billion contract to Cerner, you should be able to have some uh, some sway into what they're going to be doing, don't you think?
Well, absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. With that sort of scale and spend, you know, it there needs to be a catalyst to help modernize the current state of things, and that might be one of the catalysts, to sort of light that
It
fire.
would be. It would be. It's very provocative, very fun to think about. Maybe they'll call you up after this episode and offer you the role. And I know you're very happy where you're at, so nobody should get too concerned at this point. Leadership or tech talk. We're gonna do something a little different here. I'm just gonna rapid fire some questions. I'm not gonna respond to them. I'm just gonna give you the questions. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. So I have 7 questions. First one: how is precision medicine going to change healthcare in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, 3 to 5 years. I don't think it's going to have a massive change, but I think after that period, it will. We're starting to see the benefit already, taking a lot of genomics data, putting it together with our electronic health record data, and being able to do predictive analytics on likelihood of a certain type of malady. And then as a result of knowing that, again, the genetics and the overall health, being able to, with precision, target a remedy for that. So we're seeing that already, but it's early stages, and I'm hopeful that towards the end of that time frame, that it'll be a major difference. I could see us doing 3D printing for specific drugs. Right now, everyone gets the same drug, right? You have a certain DRG, you get this drug,
Yep.
but the efficacy is 50%. So I can see in the future, hopefully closer to 3 years, but I'm thinking the backside of 5-year part, we'll see a big difference.
Yeah, and in prep for that, I can't keep my mouth shut, but in prep for that, Geisinger is actually moving towards collecting genomic data on as many of their patients as they possibly can, because they know it can have an impact. All right, question number 2. What do you think innovation in patient engagement is going to look like from, let's just stay at the provider, from a provider standpoint, what's patient engagement going to look like?
So I think it's going to be, wrapped around customer relationship management and really knowing the patient at in-depth level, not only the genomics that we talked about, but also from a social perspective. And like the example I was giving for myself now is, I'm very connected with my provider, unlike in the past, right? So they automatically get this feed of my EKG and my other vitals, and they'll have this real-time data, and hopefully we'll layer in the analytics, whether it's chatbots or machine learning, whatever, we call it augmented intelligence, that will alert them. Not that they have to look at all that information because they don't have time to do that, but there'll be algorithms and bots that look at all that information and alert them if there's an issue.
Yeah, I agree. And that was one of the biggest challenges. Doctors, we were trying to bring that data in. The doctors were saying, no more data. It's too crowded, too busy right now. And I think that machine learning and AI and the bots are going to help them to sort of sift through it. Third question. So this actually impacted me, so I really wanted to share it with others. So we had a conversation early on in my healthcare CIO tenure, and you said that you bring in, you take your team out and you bring in people from outside of the healthcare industry to have discussions around strategy, trends, and technology. Can you give us an idea of what you did, why you did it, and what benefit was derived by your team in the health system by interacting with organizations outside of healthcare?
Yeah, of course. So I think I first learned this technique when I started to be on a couple of boards for organizations. And instead of being a bunch of healthcare CIOs, there was a CIO from Kellogg's, there was a CIO from Colgate, and Wrigley's. And I remember just learning a lot from them and different perspectives. I thought, wow, I want to hang out with that person, and not just myself. I want my team to hang out with that person. So then we started doing that. So once a year, I'd pick a different company, and we would meet with those companies. I'll give you one example. Pure One. So Pure One was really good at data analytics. They had this amazing performance in revenue. And when I asked about how they went from a penny stock to a very successful company, it was all around analytics. And so we met with them and talked to analytics. We were about to launch a big BI analytics endeavor at my organization then, and we learned so much from them. And one thing was they watermarked all their reports, whether they were online or hard copy. They were watermarked. So the CEO and everyone knew that you can trust that data that came with that watermark because it was part of their BI program, as opposed to someone else creating a spreadsheet, giving out data. You don't know if it's accurate or not, but this meant was accurate. So that's what we started to do. So you knew when you got this report that it had our watermark on it, you knew you could trust that source of information. So that helped with our credibility and the standardization and the, going from many different data sources to one. So that's one example. So we do it all the time, and we've got it some planned here as well.
Yeah, that was, thanks for sharing that with me. That was very powerful. So question number 4, are there any technologies right now that you're keeping an eye on, maybe that you're not implementing or doing a deep dive on, but that you're, piloting or playing with?
Yeah, well, we have an amazing development team. They do all the, I call it G Whiz, my term for that. They do all sorts of G Whiz technology, and one is taking some GPS capabilities. So we have patients that we don't admit them to our facility, but we allow them to heal at home. Right? It's that patient satisfaction is higher, the quality of care is the same or better, and the cost is half. So we developed this application for our so we have ambulance drivers who go to make house calls essentially. So when they're not providing ambulance service, they are making some house calls. So we have a GPS that's embedded now in our electronic health record that they follow. It's a smart GPS, so it tells them where to go in order to see these different patients. And the stories you get from that is amazing, just the customer service, but also from a healthcare point of view, it's amazing. So some of that technology of using GPS and inputting it into the electronic health record, that's something different. You don't normally hear about that one. So I give that one. I could talk about blockchain. So, but we embrace blockchain. Certainly, I think there's a lot of great future for it. So we watch carefully. We work with select vendors, and in terms of blockchain. But I just think the real one that we're actually doing is like these GWiz stuff that our amazing development team does.
But you are keeping an eye on blockchain, and that's it's that will be an interesting one over the next couple of years. We'll have to circle back with you on that. So. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about, the 5th question is really around the IT worker. So healthcare IT used to be pretty intensive from a labor standpoint. That's really changed with cloud and automation. And what's the message you're giving to your frontline IT workers around the future of work and how they can maybe adapt their careers to stay relevant?
Yeah, I'm like, wow, I'm just like a little kid. So sometimes you watch little kids who come on an airplane for the first time, these 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds, and they come around the corner, and as they get on the plane, they look down the aisle and they're like, wow. And that's what I tell our team. It's like, do you realize that we're at the tip of the spear? We are doing digital health. We are imagining things and then actually doing things. And what a great opportunity. And whatever training you need, we are there to give you that training. So I talk about it as a very positive thing. And so it's like, whether it's basic stuff like ITIL, so everyone has to be ITIL trained because I'm a big believer in process, or agile. So I mentioned earlier, we're becoming a completely agile company, or IT first. And so everyone's getting this agile training. We're being certified. And whether you need to be certified in electronic health record or these other digital capabilities, we're sending people to training and leadership training and investing in people, because people make things happen. So even though our positions are changing and morphing with the times, it doesn't mean that we're still not needed. And so we continue to invest in our people. I tell them, what an amazing opportunity, that we all have. I'm jumpy here because I'm just so excited about everything that we're doing.
Yep. And so I guess the message is, we live in a great time. Keep investing. Look for a company that's going to invest in you, and keep investing in yourself. Keep reading and diving in and learning new things, because there's plenty of opportunities.
Yeah, just keep growing. I always tell people it's like riding a bike. You can coast every once in a while, but if you don't keep pedaling, at some point you're gonna fall over.
So, sixth question is the obligatory question that every healthcare CIO gets asked. How has the role of the CIO changed in the last 5 years, or do you think it's going to change in the next 5 years?
I think it's going to continuously change. And so we're seeing, I call it the postmodern CIO, and I know you've covered that topic pretty well with some of your past guests, but it really is more about the business acumen. It's about leadership. It's like digital health. I got an opportunity. Wow, I got to lead digital health for our organization. And the rest of the team they're non-IT. So that's a beautiful thing. It wasn't an IT thing. It was a cross-enterprise initiative that we took on. And the leaders of all these different journeys, I think I may have alluded to them earlier, they're all non-IT people. They're leaders or clinicians elsewhere in the organization, whether it's HR, revenue cycles, supply chain, clinicians. There's across the board. We got to help. We got to lead it. And so, wow, what an opportunity. But I wouldn't have been able to have been afforded that opportunity if I wouldn't have learned and grown and morphed and learned about the business side, learned about the clinical side. There's all sorts of things that, we can do, even if we're not clinicians. I do have a slight clinician background, but even so, I routinely walk in the shoes of our clinicians. I continuously try to hang out with our clinicians to learn about what they do, what their pain points are. I volunteer in clinical areas so I can learn more about nursing and what they're doing. And so there's things that we can do to immerse ourselves to better understand the business and the clinical side.
Yep, absolutely. The role is going to continue to change, just like we're talking to the frontline IT worker, keep investing, keep reading, keep engaging. We're saying the same thing to ourselves, really, as CIOs. And then the last question is a selfish question for me is, how do you do it? So your work-life balance, you're in shape, you have a wonderful family life, you have a high-profile career. Give us an idea of how you make it all work, and maybe I can apply some of it.
Yeah, it's probably different for everyone. And I'll tell you what, my grounding is my faith. I won't get religious on you or anything, but my grounding is my faith. So my faith keeps me grounded. It keeps me humble. I know, why I'm created. I know why I'm here. So I have a sense of purpose. So that's one thing. But I have given up sleep. So I will admit. So I only sleep about 5 hours to try to 5 hours a night to fit it all in. I try for 6. My goal is 6. I know it's important for health to have good sleep and good rest for your mind and your body. So my goal is 6, but I was around 5. Right now I'm now at 8 because I'm not allowed to work out as much as I used to for now. But so I think getting good rest, but you try to fit in when you can. So I'm an early bird. I get up early to work out so it doesn't impact my family time. And so when I come home, I'm home. So that's one way, and also learning to delegate and building a great team. So if you build a great team, you don't have to do it all. You should never be in a position where you're doing it all. So building a great team, and then of course, having an awesome family helps as well. And I'm fortunate and blessed with that as well.
Yep, absolutely. And I assume there's a bed right there in that office somewhere off camera that you take naps during the day.
I wish that were the case. I feel like it sometimes.
Yeah, that's hardly ever the case. All right. Hey, so let's close it out. I'm going to share my social media post, and this falls into the category of pride comes before the fall. The Toronto Blue Jays, as everyone knows, there's been a lot of baseball cancellations. I'm a huge baseball fan. And the Toronto Blue Jays tweeted this out. Weather update: due to our stadium having a roof, today's game will be played as expected. And later on that afternoon, they tweeted, Rogers Center, which is where the Blue Jays play their game with the dome, confirms that ice from the CN Tower has hit our roof, and the building crews are unable to assess the damage, and more ice could fall, and they canceled the game even though they had a roof. So pride does come before the fall. To you, do you have something you want to share?
Yeah, I love the clinic. Actually, very progressive. It puts out a lot of social media is awesome with Cleveland Clinic, and they put out some edgy stuff, on Twitter. But not so. I won't do the edgy with you. But the not so edgy, but very comforting is that coffee is healthy. So they tweeted something yesterday from one of our docs talking about the health benefits of coffee, as long as you don't add in all the other bad stuff, though.
Wow, so, you just made my daughter very happy.
Yeah, I thought that was good news. I'm like, yes.
Well, again, thanks for coming on the show. Ed, can you tell people how they could follow you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. It's not all that exciting, but Marx Tango on Twitter. And then Probably LinkedIn is the best place. I'm starting to blog now off of LinkedIn, and so if you attach with me on LinkedIn, there's definitely a way to keep in touch. But that's probably my primary areas.
Fantastic. So you can follow me at the Patient CIO on Twitter. My writing on Health Lyrics website, Health System CIO. Don't forget to follow the show on Twitter this week in HIT, and check out our website at thisweekinhealthit.com. If you like the show, please take a few seconds to give us a review on iTunes and Google Play. Catch all the videos on the YouTube channel, thisweekinhealthit.com/video is the easiest way to get there. And please come back every Friday for more news, information, and commentary from industry influencers. That's all for now.